Welcome to Miniature Heroes. So in this video I will show you how I made this water well diorama. I made this for my gaming table. It's great for games like D&D, Frostgrave, and it also looks really good in a display cabinet with some of your favourite minis. So to begin this build, I first prepare some bricks using some XPS foam. I cut that down to size and create some small bricks which are 5mm by 5mm by 10mm, and these are going to be used to create the structure of the well. So next, using some stones from outside, I add those to a container of bricks that I've made. I give it a good shake, and this is just going to add some definition to those bricks. So for the base, I'm going to be using this piece of plywood. Using a tea tree light, I just mark out the circumference of the well. So next is to hot glue those bricks into place. So at this point I decided I wanted to add some slabs around the well just to make it look more visually attractive. I cut some of the bricks down to size and then I hot glued those in place. So here I'm making some of the structural posts which will be holding up the roof. For this I'm using balsa wood sticks. I find these great for crafting with as they're lightweight and they're easy to cut with using a blade. So the length of the beams are 2 1/4 inch. The little pieces that I put in between those beams, I kind of eyeballed those, but I would say they are around 5 by 5mm. So next I mixed up some plaster. I found this on Amazon, but any kind of plaster will do just fine. Using a stirring stick, I then filled in all of the cracks and then went over with a cloth to wipe down all of the excess off of the bricks, and then cleaned up the plaster in between those bricks and create some depth. So here I am scoring the timber, trying to give it a more weathered look. So next up is to hot glue both of those two posts into place. Then after that I create another beam which will go across the well, and it's just overlapping 5mm either side. Next I mark out 2 more beams, both 1 inch and 1/4, and then I hot glue those into place. So next, to create the roof structure, I cut 2 2-inch beams, and at one end of the beam I cut at a 45-degree angle and hot glued those in place. I then took another strip of balsa wood and laid that on top, eyeballed where they both met on the beam, and then made a cut, hot glued that in place to get this triangle shape. So next, just to give the structure more stability, I'm marking out 2 more beams which will just go in the center of these just to brace these two together. Next up was to create the mechanics for the well. Using chipboard, I cut 2 discs 1 centimeter in diameter, and then a smaller disc which would go inside, which was 6 mil in diameter. Hot glued these together. I got this hook from my local crafting store. So moving on, to finish this roof off, I cut lots of stirring sticks into 2-inch lengths and layered these on top of each other and hot glued those down into place. Once I had finished the roof, I then moved on to the brickwork. I just wanted to seal all of the brickwork before I started painting, so I gave it a heavy coat of Mod Podge. So for all of the timber, I gave it a coat of Wildwood contrast paint. I also then decided I wanted to apply this to the plaster just to stain it and give it a bit of texture. Next I applied a dry brush of burnt umber to all of the stonework. Then I went over with a black wash, and at this stage it was all starting to piece together. And then just to finish it off, I gave it a dry brush of Corex white just to highlight some of those sharp edges. So once that had dried, I then followed up with a shade of Biltang green. I applied this to some of the recessed areas where I wanted it to be a bit more murky, kind of that mould look that you get on the well. So for the metal parts on the well, the hooks and the discs, I painted that in lead belcher, and then I gave it a wash of Agrax Earthshade just to give it that kind of worn, grungy, dirty appearance. Just to finish the well off, using some epoxy, I mix some blue and black paint and then I add that to the well. So for the base, I mix up some Mod Podge paint and burnt amber and I apply this all over. I then sprinkled in some sand, just let this soak in, and this is just going to add some texture. And then I decided I wanted to add a path, so I put a bit more sand where I was going to have that walkway. The stones I painted in burnt amber, and then once they dried I gave them a dry brush with a mix of some white and black paint. Once the burnt amber had dried, I gave a dry brush of Tyrant Skull to the stones of the path, and to finish it off I added some tufts from World Scenics and flocking. Well, that's it guys, I'm really happy with how this one's turned out. I can't wait to get it on the gaming table. I hope this video has been informative for you and helpful. If it has, please hit the like and subscribe, it really helps me out so much. And I'll see you next time on Miniature Heroes.